What's going on, guys? My name is Professor Nigel. Today I'm going to show you how to take peek in Caldera. Now, the first step to taking peek is don't. Just don't. Save yourself the time. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Now, obviously, I'm just joking around. The first step to taking peek is to land off to the side. As you can see on the map, there's a rock formation that gives you access to these artillery guns and doorway that leads to a cave system and zip line that run under the mountain. Now, by no means is this some undiscovered location. If you've landed at peek or have played Caldera, you know about the caves, but I think it is a massively undervalued and ignored location, and I think it provides the best and most consistent start to any game of Warzone, no matter the playing path or zone. Of course, if your team is confident enough to consistently land on top of the bunker, keep doing what you're doing, but if you've ever wanted to try and land at peek and don't know where to begin, or you're consistently dying when you do land here, this is the best method to attack with and is a great alternative to the top that you won't regret trying. The main reasons you should land below is it gives you a lot of options and is more manageable than at the top. When you land top peek, especially now with the redeploy balloons, there are a lot of angles that people can be attacking from, whether it's the mountainside to the left, somewhere else on the top of the bunker, or if you were playing Vanguard Royale, there's a strong likelihood that there will be those pesky planes and bombers that are flying around, and more often than not, the top is just overcrowded with too many people going for too few guns. Landing below 99% of the time has far fewer people, and there are more guns and chests laying around, and dealing with 1 or 2 squads is obviously far easier than the 4+ squads that tend to land at the top. Now, of course, one disclaimer to this particular gameplay, and the gameplay I'm about to show you, is that it is definitely on the crazier side than what normal drops to the caves look like, as it's far easier to show you how manageable it is when there are a lot of teams, and the gameplay acts as a what to do in a worst case scenario at least 75% of the time, or if the plane path isn't right over peek, there's usually only one other team that goes for this location, and even then, there's still a lot of times when my squad has dropped here and met absolutely no opposition when going into these caves. So now back to the options you get when you land here. As you can see from this opening gameplay, the bottom of peek has a substantial amount of cash, so even if you aren't going for kills, you have the ability to get a lot of cash and escape to anyone in the nearby buy stations that surround peek to get your UAVs, your loadout, or anything else that you need. As you just saw, we didn't even have to see the top of peek, and we were able to just operate within the caves, get great weapons, cash, and other gear. Of course, if you don't want to stay for long and taking the caves like this gameplay just showed seems like too much, toward the end of the video I will run through some bail options on how to get in and out from peek rather quickly. However, just a reminder, this gameplay is absolutely an outlier to a normal cave drop, and oftentimes the caves end up being empty. Now, if you're going for more kills rather than cash, or you want to be able to conquer all of peek, I'm going to show you in this gameplay right here how my squad takes the top of peek in addition to the caves. Taking the top of peek usually can get you some more kills, and it also provides a great launching point for the rest of your Warzone match, and as you can pretty much get anywhere else on the map due to peek's height difference with the rest of the map. But obviously, this works when you can launch from the top of the bunker, so let's run through taking peek. So as you can see, we started off this peek drop as any other peek drop would go. We drop at the artillery guns, go in and down the corridor, and there we were able to pick up weapons as well as other equipment. We were ready to go for when we came down the stairs that I'm going up now to round the corner and take by surprise any enemies that were already in the cave who had dropped on either the other end or through the hole in the top of peek. Now, this is a very important aspect of taking the caves. This is where the management kind of comes into, and this is why I think the caves are a lot more manageable than the top of peek. There's only a set amount of areas that enemies can be coming through, so when you come down those stairs and you look to your left, odds are, if there are going to be enemies, they're going to be coming from the other side of the cave in that little corridor that I just took out the 2 enemies. The other option is that they are coming from behind you, or they landed with you, and they could be coming from behind these stairs. Odds are people aren't zipping down to the caves, but it has happened on the odd game or two. But most of the time, you're going to be coming down these stairs, and you're going to be looking to the left down this corridor. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because obviously sometimes people will be in the central room in the caves, and they will be waiting for you to come down the corridor. And it becomes very tricky to know when you should be running down the corridor and when you should be holding and waiting for enemies to come to you. Because obviously, once enemies are in the middle of the corridor, it is extremely hard for them to actually back out of being in that corridor and either getting back to the central room or getting to the room you are when you walk down the stairs. Now, once you've completely cleared out the bottom of caves, you've gone into the main corridor. If that was empty or you've already taken out the enemies, odds are there's not going to be any more loot in there, of course, if you've already taken out the enemies. So you save yourself time, you come back here, and if you want to go to the top of Peak, you go ahead and you zip up. Now, what I'm doing right here is a strategy that me and my squad have been doing for quite some time, and it's kind of hit or miss, and it really depends on if there is still a barrel up in the room above where you are zipping up to. So if you don't already know, you can attach a barrel to a zip line and send it up, and it will explode once it gets to the top of the zip line. So if there's anyone in the room that is right where the zip line kind of feeds into, it should either hit their armor or destroy any equipment that is nearby and will harm you when you're at the top of the zip. There's also another canister that is in that room. So if there is a person in that room and the canister is still sitting in this top room, it will chain reaction, explode, triggering the other canister to explode, and will usually down any people who are in that room. Of course, if that barrel is already blown up, the barrel being sent up on the zip is not enough to usually down someone unless they're right up against the zip, which doesn't happen very often. So you kind of have to be careful with that. If it does hit an enemy, they probably know you're going to be coming, and you might want to take a different route of attack. But if you get up here, you're able to clear this second floor. Of course, know your bail options once you get to the second floor. If there's no one on the second floor, or you're able to take out the people that are on the second floor, odds are there's going to be people above you. And if they're not fighting, they will be able to hear you down below. They will hear the zip, and they'll definitely be able to hear you running around. So it's very important that you know once you've taken this floor right above the top of Peak, to know how to either bail or get up the ladder so you can be at the absolute top of Peak and fight the other teams that are still there. So, of course, the bail options, I remembered, of course, you can always zip back down. In this particular gameplay, we kind of thought that there was someone down there because I placed a mine somewhere down in the cave that was tripped. The other option you have for bailing on that second floor is to the left of the zip, and then if you take another left, there's a little room with 3 windows that you're able to hop out of. So there are windows on either side, pretty much in the rooms with the ladder. You'll have 3 windows that you're able to hop out of. So in this case, it's just on the other side. As you can see, if you go further to the left from that hallway right there, there's a room with 3 windows. So again, if there are people above, you don't think you can get up the ladder, as the ladder is a little bit of a death trap sometimes. You can either take a different route, or you can just choose to bail right then and there. Of course, in this particular game mode or gameplay, we didn't actually find anyone up top here. Either they had already bailed, or as you can tell by this gameplay, there were a lot of people below. So there we were able to take the top of Peak and actually get out without having any problems. I'm going to quickly cut to this clip before we get into the other areas of Peak that you can attack from, but if you're stuck down here under the ladders and you still want to find a way to go up, most of the time you can. As you can see, I saw a red dot on the other side, and I could see that there was an enemy watching the other ladder. So I went up the opposite ladder, and to my surprise, there was 2 people here watching the same ladder. Now, obviously, if you're at the top of Peak, you don't want to be watching the same ladder and let the enemy get up on you like I just did to these guys. But of course, just goes to show that it's not impossible to get up these ladders. You usually just have to time it right, or if you're able to down one and send someone up the other ladder, or down one and send yourself up the same ladder, you can usually find a way up with these ladders. However, let's get into the other options that you have if people are watching the ladders. So if you know Peak in and out, I'm sure you know all the areas that you can attack from, but just in case you're unfamiliar with Peak or need ideas on how to flank the area, I'm going to finish this video off by running through all the hop-ups and ways you can get on top of Peak without having to go up the ladders that are there once you zip up. So it starts off with some bailout locations. These are the inside and outside perspectives, so you can just get a sense of what it looks like when you're inside this corridor right here and the rooms. So you can either hop out the windows or at this one end you can hop it down the ladder. Again, this is just the outside perspective of that ladder that I just showed you. So if you hop out that ladder or hop down that ladder and go to the left, or in this case the way I'm facing, if you go to the right, you can run along the outside of Peak and get to a couple of zips as well as a gondola that runs you from the bottom of Peak all the way up to the top. So again, this is just showing you the inside and outside perspective, so whether you're inside or you've hopped out, you know where to go. So if you run down here, you can see this first zip here. I personally don't like using this zip, as it pretty much spits you out right next to one of the ladders, and people can hear you zipping up, so I don't really think it's worth it. Right here is the gondola that runs up to Peak. Now usually right down here, this building will have a buy station, so it's a great spot to fly down to if you need to buy a teammate back. And you can also fly down there at the beginning of the match. There are a couple guns, and then you can ride the gondola all the way up to Peak. That is also another strategy. Now, once you climb up here, there's a ladder that gets you into kind of this bottom room. This is where the gondola spits you out. There is also this zip that takes you out, which is also a solid option. I think better than the first zip that I showed you running on the side of the mountain. But if you don't want to use this zip, you think there's other people on top of you, especially for trios and quads, if there are other teammates that can be above you and watching the other zips, there is a ladder right here. This is the location on the map of that ladder. I think that's a solid option and doesn't make as much noise as the zips. Another thing that you can try is you can try flanking using the cave. Now, of course, in the central cave room, which I will be showing you later, there are a couple zips up to this kind of valley in the middle of Peak. Now, this is a little bit, again, of a risky play. I would really probably only try this in either solos or duos. As you can see, as I was pointing out and aiming at, right to the right, there is a ladder that leads up, and then to the left, there's a little hop up. Again, this is that was kind of a little bit out in the open. I definitely wouldn't recommend trying that in quads. It's very easy to get caught out in that valley, so I'd probably go with the ladder or one of the zips, probably the zip near the gondola. As I'm showing you right now, these were just added about a week or two ago with the Season 2 update. These redeploy stations can get you overhead and on top of Peak. Now, I would probably pair this with your teammate trying to go up the ladder while you're flying in, so it's just kind of a sensory overload. They don't know really who to shoot. They're maybe paying attention to the person who's climbing up the ladder rather than you flying overhead, because again, if you pull your parachute, you're kind of a little bit of a sitting duck. So we have a zip or a redeploy station that is on the top side or the far side, and then the bottom side of Peak. Again, both great options and both great things and new things that you can try, but again, be very, very careful with them because the sound of the parachute will definitely alert people who are on top of Peak. Now, going back to the zip, if you go to the right of that and you follow the scaffolding without going through the doors and alerting people above you, I think this is a much more silent way of getting to this ladder. And then if you go all the way to the right, another way that you can get up on top is if you follow this path, you loop all the way around. Again, this one is a little bit time consuming, but I think it spits you out in a really good location, especially if you think there are going to be people up on this top part where this helicopter is and they're watching the zip that's right next to the gondola. Now, the area that I'm showing you right on the map is the other far side entrance or exit or entrance, whatever you want it to be, to the cave. You can, of course, go all the way through the bottom of the cave and loop around to get up here without even going up the zip and trying to get up the ladders. Again, I'll be showing you that right here. So this is the location to the far side entrance to the cave system that runs under Peak. So the obviously first entrance is by the guns with the door that I showed you in the beginning of the video, but this is the flip side of that. This corridor leads all the way down to this open area that is within Peak that you guys have already seen, and I'm sure you guys know about. But again, just for clarity's sake, just in case you don't really land Peak, I think it's good to definitely know what everything looks like before you end up dropping there. So there are the two zips that bring you up into the middle of the valley like I was talking about before. And then if you run to the opposite side, there is the hallway that leads you eventually back up here toward the zip and the corridor that you get to from the artillery guns and the door that I, of course, showed you at the beginning of the video. Now, if you want to have a quick and easy bailout, you don't want to go to the top of Peak, as I mentioned before, you can just run down the corridor that I just showed you, and you can run right back out that door, or even if you land near the artillery guns and there are other teams that are landing right here, you can go ahead and just flip right around and jump off of the kind of cliff that is right here, and there is a bridge and kind of a tunnel and underpass that leads you all the way down to some houses, as well as usually the area that I'm circling right now, there's usually a buy station, but if not, there are some buy stations further down here, and it's a quick, easy escape, especially if there are a ton of people landing caves. You're not really expecting it. It's a plane path that goes right over caves, and there happen to be, more teams than expected. This is a solid bailout option. You go down to this bridge, there's a ton of crates, you can get some decent cash, and you can go to one of the buy stations, and you can kind of run down towards fields, or use one of the redeploy stations to attack Peak from a different angle. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was super, super helpful. If it was, if you can hit that like and subscribe button, that would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.